Let's take a closer look now at the agriculture segment and a new publicly traded company. You'll want to hear more about it. Joining the mix, Alan Kessler's with us, Chairman and CEO, African Agriculture. Thank you for being with us. So, company goes public today at the NASDAQ. It's a SPAC merger that happened. AAGR is the ticker symbol. Why now? Tell us a little bit about the story, how this came to be.
Thank you, Nicole. We had an opportunity to work with the team at 10X Capital. They had done a number of very highly successful specialty purpose acquisitions, and it provided us very much a necessary amount of capital to develop what we think is a nascent but growing platform in the African agriculture space. What I mean by that is we kind of think of the world as being a small farm, which is where we are today in Senegal, to becoming a big farm, a much larger footprint in what we're producing, which is alfalfa for cattle feed, and then ultimately taking the data, taking the precision agriculture approach, and then really turning it into very much a transformative platform that we think can become a food security paradigm for the coming century.
Did you find during the pandemic that it was most important for your company to grow? Did you almost feel a responsibility to make this work in the right way? Because
certainly,
we
I think,
for example, meat, not to interrupt you, but just to make my point, we had meat factories shutting down because everybody had COVID, right? And so I was just curious to hear more about that.
Sure. I think the pandemic certainly was a catalytic part of this. But the global geopolitical food shortage paradigms, I think, have even been a larger factor, and especially in the developing world. There's such a difficult supply chain that can be driven by a few exporting countries. So providing countries, or in our case regions, an ability to locally produce for local consumption is actually a very natural way for the good part of our development to evolve.
Yeah, and so at this point, the SPAC was the way to go here. Give us the outlook. The analysts, of course, would love to hear more about the good deeds, but to your point, there's a global food shortage. You need to sort of minimize that supply chain delay and have more locally grown items, to your point, in certain regions. So how are you doing that while balancing the balance sheet at the same time? What drives this company? How much do you need?
Look, we are a private sector company, and as much as we're focused on impact and social opportunities and development, which are a key part of the DNA of our company and our corporate profile and our board of directors and the entire management team, we're a private sector company, and we are based in New York, and we are focused on profitability and return on capital for our shareholders. Having said that, the key for us now is to drive enough capital to put it into the ground, to continue to develop both the corporate build-out for alfalfa only, but then ultimately to start to think about expansion into different crops in different regions. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a very much an open-ended growth story. So we're beginning with a $20 billion market that has been around for 2,000 years. But I think that there are a number of crops, a number of countries that we could truly expand the precision agriculture approach. And I think that the key for us is that the ultimate access to capital that was provided by the SPAC was actually very necessary for our growth profile. Africa, unfortunately, has not been a typical haven of investment or even a substrate of investment for many institutions here in the U.S. And I think the ability to now grow that capital base here in the U.S. is a very unique opportunity for us, and quite frankly, a very big responsibility for us as a public company.
And so you have more capital on hand to be able to do that. You mentioned in Senegal and being able to expand now. So I'm curious, as you are growing the alfalfa part of this, which feeds the cattle. The alfalfa feeds the cattle, so that's one area that you're doing extremely well in. What areas would you like to expand in? So next time we're talking about that. So what types of agriculture and what countries or regions?
Well, I think there are probably a few ways to answer that. I mean, I think the U.S. and Canada, the North American herd size is about 90 million heads of cattle. The Sahel, which is the area we are in the Sahara in West Africa, has a herd size that is approximately double that of North America. And when you think about all the jobs and the development and the economic impact of what the North American herd size, when you factor in all of the peripheral industries and businesses, it can aggregate somewhere north of $750 billion a year. So just the vertical integration of what we're doing is certainly a natural area. The horizontal integration, the agri businesses that are attached to that, the biofuels, the new crops, the new geographic areas. We are the only large-scale producer in the entire West Africa region that is 750 million people and growing. So, you know, I think the one thing that people don't think of when you think of Africa is just it is really a hyper-growth environment where there is no institutional capital flowing, certainly from North America. And so we would like to be part of that conduit.
It certainly sounds exciting. I mean, what does this mean for names like Caterpillar and Deere when it comes to agricultural equipment and things?
Well, I think one of the things as we've started to broaden our approach and we've started thinking about what we could do very well versus what had traditionally been done on the African continent, we highlighted a number of different aspects of development. And those could include things like machinery, but also ag science, education. We had today on the exchange with us a representative from two of our academic partners, Louisiana State University and Michigan State University. But certainly you mentioned machinery and equipment, and these are areas where the U.S. has had such a traditional market share and such leadership, and quite frankly, such refined and a very natural evolution of expertise. And I think now the key is for us to really take that machinery, take that equipment, and now move it to an area where they can really benefit on that efficiency.
Yeah, you've taught us a lot today, Alan. I hadn't realized that the herd size was twice the size, and the growth, the hyper growth that you're seeing in Africa. I detect a little of a South African accent for you. It's wonderful, and I'm a big MSU fan. Go green, go white for Michigan State. Thank you. I enjoyed our conversation very much. Best to you and your team. Congratulations. Alan Kessler, Chairman and CEO, African Agriculture.